So now let's take a look at how we can create a generic method. And again, this isn't going to be extremely useful at this point until we're able to restrict the generic method. And I'll show you how to do that next. But first, let's just look at the basic syntax of this. And you'll just kind of have to bear with me here to see that this example will show you how to do this, but it's not going to really give you a lot of value yet. So let's create a method that is going to allow us to print using a different print cartridge than what the printer is configured with. If you remember, we made our printer be able to take a type, and that'd be the type of the cartridge. But let's say we want to have a print method that would print, you could specify a cartridge. Think about inserting a cartridge just for a temporary print. So one thing that we need to do when we declare our generic method is we need to specify what the generic is going to be right here after the public, before the type, before the return type. So I'm going to use a different letter here. I'm going to do U here instead of T because we're already using T in our class to make this a separate type. And this U is only going to exist for this method. It's not going to exist outside of here. The T exists in all the methods. It's the type that's defined for that class. But this U is going to exist just for this method invocation. So you could call this method multiple times and pass in a different type for U. Then we're just going to declare our method. We're going to call this print using cartridge. And then we're going to say it's of type U, whatever the type that you want to use. And we'll call this cartridge. And then we'll have a string, which will be our message to print. And then we'll go ahead and just sandwich our message in between our cartridge's toString here. So we'll make 2 of these, and then we'll make it so that we'll print our message in between here. So let's take a look at how we can actually use this. This is the basic syntax. You have our type, and then you're passing in the type as a parameter. So let's see if we actually call this. Instead of calling print, we're going to call print using cartridge, and then we're going to do a different cartridge than what our printer is. We're going to do a new color cartridge. And we'll pass in a message of hi. And one thing that you'll notice here with the method is it auto-infers what the type is. So I didn't specify the type. I didn't do this. I didn't say color cartridge. Because I don't need to do that because Java's smart enough, the compiler is smart enough to figure out that, okay, if you've passed in a type of color cartridge here, then this U, I'm going to replace this with color cartridge. And so everywhere in the code where I see U, I'm going to use color cartridge instead. So let's go ahead and run this and see what happens now. You can see here we're actually using a color cartridge because it printed the color, the toString for color, and then it printed a hi and then color again. And so we have auto-inferred this type, we have our generic method, and our generic method is using whatever type we pass in here. And now before we get into actually using the bounding to make it so that we restrict our type, I'm going to show you why we're going to need to do this real quick. So in this method, there's nothing that's stopping us from doing something like this. See, 3 is a type of integer. It's a type, so when we go to our print using cartridge, this U is going to be integer, or big integer, because this is the boxed version of an integer, because it has to be an object. So now we're going to be using an integer here, which is not a type of cartridge at all. And if I run this, you can see it's printing 3, which is strange. It doesn't make much sense here. So it'll take any type here, basically any class. I mean, we can even do something silly like pass in our own reference to printer. And you can see it prints out the actual class, like the memory of that printer. So we've got a bit of a problem here, and I'm going to show you how to solve this problem next.